Richard III's DNA raises questions over Queen's ancestry. Following the discovery of his remains more than 500 years after his death, scientists discovered that King Richard III's DNA shows evidence of illegitimacy in the British royal family ancestry. Since the news first broke out in 2012, the same staggering question continues to boggle the minds of many up to this day. Is Queen Elizabeth II the rightful heir to the throne? King Richard III lived in the 15th century. His reign was rather short as it only lasted for 2 years due to his sudden death in the hands of his enemies at the Battle of Bosworth. The iconic ruler is known to be the last king of England to die in a battle that marked the end of the Plantagenet era and paved the way for the Tudor period. His reputation speaks both of his good and bad sides. Some say that he was a great ruler who wanted to make life fairer and more bearable for ordinary people. On the flip side, others say that he was so despicable that he murdered his nephews to protect his throne. Regardless of which account is accurate, scientists who studied his life believe one thing to be true: that the human remains unearthed under a car park in downtown Leicester back in 2012 is indeed King Richard III. This confirmation is the foundation of a huge controversy surrounding the reigning royal family's claim to the throne. A team of DNA experts and genealogists from Leicester University studied the remains of Richard III. Since he did not have a successor, they compared DNA samples with his sister Anne of York's living descendants. While King Richard III's DNA matched with his female ancestors, it was not a match with the males. There appears to be a break in the family tree. This means that somewhere along the lineage, a royal wife cuckolded a king and gave birth to another man's child. As to whom exactly was the illegitimate royalty, scientists could not say for sure at this time. This did not come as a surprise to a lot of genealogists though, as they are well aware of the constant 1% to 2% chance of false paternity. There is also the possibility that there is more than one break in the lineage or that more than one royal wife kept a secret. Queen Elizabeth II is a descendant of King Henry VII, who is one of the 5 Tudor monarchs. If the break in the lineage occurred between John of Gaunt and his father Edward III, who both lived in the early 14th century, then the Tudors' claim to the throne might be illegitimate. According to Professor Kevin Schurer of Leicester University, given the passage of time since this probably medieval royal scandal happened, the reigning queen is safe and her claim to the throne should not be questioned. Almost a decade after this discovery, the queen remains unshaken. By far no controversy or theory has succeeded in dethroning the royal family, and the living descendants of the House of Tudor continue to reign. The mystery of the nonsense hieroglyphics. For decades, a group of Polish archaeologists have been working to excavate the Saqqara necropolis, or City of the Dead. This necropolis was in the ancient capital of Memphis. Inside is filled with ornate tombs, obvious that this particular necropolis was reserved for royalty. Nearby, in a dig taking place in September of 2018, Egyptologist Kamil Karaskovitz and his team were working in an area between the Pyramid of Djoser, the oldest pyramid in the world, and the Dry Moat, a long rectangular ditch surrounding the pyramid. It was here they discovered something out of the ordinary. When tombs of royalty or other important people are uncovered, they are often filled with grave goods symbolizing their importance. Some are even labeled with hieroglyphics. Modern hieroglyphics have been around since roughly the 32nd century BC, with the first full sentence appearing in the 28th century BC. The written language consists of over 1,000 distinct characters. With this ancient language unlocked, researchers can decipher all kinds of things about the tombs they decorate, including who they belonged to. That was until the dig near the Pyramid of Djoser. Here, the team found roughly 500 simple burials. These burials were simple and in no way as neatly done as those of the royals. One could even call them clumsy. It is thought that this could have been a burial site for the working or middle-class people. The team went on to say that the embalming was very basic, and the bodies were placed directly into pits in the sand or into now much decayed wooden coffins. Although the coffins had much damage and were often found empty from looters, one coffin remained intact enough for the team to study. On the lid, where the name of the deceased would often go, were what is best to be referred to as imitation hieroglyphics. They didn't make one bit of sense. The researchers believed that possibly the painter was illiterate and simply tried to recreate glyphs they had seen before. Furthermore, figures of Anubis, guardian of the underworld, were painted in blue instead of his usual black. They described the coffin as beautifully clumsy. Some believe that although the burials are simple and nowhere near the grandeur of the royal, that everyday people still practice the same funeral practices, or even that the funerals of the royal were mimicked without pure understanding. As we have come to learn, the mummification and burial process held great religious beliefs in the Egyptian culture, great tombs and burials aimed at supplying a glorious afterlife. Maybe this was just one person's go at giving their loved one a chance at having one as well. The Behistun inscription. Found at a large rock relief on a cliff located at Mount Behistun, a name of which roughly translates to the old Persian saying that means the place of God, was an ancient multilingual inscription carved into the rock face that changed the understanding of these ancient civilizations for research archaeologists and expert historians from around the world. Serving a purpose similar to that of the Rosetta Stone, the inscription located on the rock face in the Kermanshah province of Iran helped researchers to decipher the ancient cuneiform script that had often been found in archaeological expeditions all throughout the region. The Behistun inscription had included 3 versions of the same text, all written in 3 different cuneiform script languages: Old Persian, Elamite, and Babylonian, which was a variety of the ancient Akkadian written language. Interestingly enough, the inscriptions on the side of the limestone cliff face told stories of ancient gods that seemed to fit with the theories of those of the ancient alien community, and back in 1938, the inscription had become popular amongst Nazi researchers looking into the matter and had become of focused interest to the Nazi German think tank Ahnenerbe. Not only did this inscription allow researchers to understand long-forgotten languages and decipher more complex pieces, but it allowed experts to understand the ancient mythologies of the people that helped to completely change the historical timeline of civilization in the region and the advancements made by our ancestors. With the onset of World War II, the Nazi German think tank were unable to put further research into the area, and would not be revisited until roughly 10 years later in the year 1948 by an American linguist of whom never truly explained the purpose of his expedition in the region. Given the fascination that the Nazi regime and Adolf Hitler had with ancient civilizations, long-forgotten technologies, and the mysteries of the occult, many speculate that this Behistun inscription could have been at the center of the majority of the Nazi research into that of the ancient civilizations of the region, and that perhaps the American linguist was focused on better understanding this Nazi fascination. Ivona Veselek. It was the 17th of July 2010 in Spot, Poland. In the early morning light, 19-year-old Ivona Veselek makes a final call to her friend Adria. Earlier that night, the girls were out celebrating their completion of high school, attending a party not far from their home. Adria convinced Ivona to leave and continue their partying at a nearby nightclub, Dream Club. Not long after midnight, they arrived at the club, along with 3 of Adria's male friends, Paul, Adrian, and Mark. After an argument with the men, Ivona stormed out, determined to walk the almost 4 miles home. Texts from her phone indicate she was angry her friend did not follow her out of the club after the argument. There were several calls made to Adria. The last one occurred at around 4 a.m, in which Adria had apologized for the incident at the club. Ivona confessed she wasn't in a state to be seen at home, still drunk from all the partying. Adria informed Ivona she would leave her keys outside of her apartment if she wanted to come to stay with her. CCTV easily tracked Ivona's path, having been seen on several different cameras. Barefoot and alone, she headed towards the neighborhood that she and Adria lived in. Needless to say, Ivona never arrived. Later that day, After awakening and finding her keys where she had left them, Adria contacted Ivona's family to check that she had made it home. Although she was reported missing, authorities claimed Ivona was capable enough to make it home and could have stayed at another friend's house. It was a week before the disappearance of Ivona was taken seriously. During the last few seconds of the video captured of Ivona, a man was seen walking behind her. He was possibly the last known person to see her alive. Even though his picture and sketches were widely circulated, no one ever stepped forward claiming to be the man. And he was never identified. In 2014, Adria and one of the men from the club were interviewed regarding the disappearance. Although both of them corroborated the time Ivona left the club, neither of them could maintain eye contact with the camera. And though they seemed to remember the time of her leaving, not one of them could remember what the argument was about. This strange behaviour has led some to believe that perhaps Adria and the men know more about her disappearance than they were telling. In Poland, Ivona's disappearance has not faded away. Some 12,000 pages on a forum remain active searching for Ivona, sharing pictures of her and asking for someone to step forward. Some fear she has been sold into human trafficking. Even with hundreds of people from the area interviewed, no sign of Ivona has ever turned up. Lars Mittank. Lars Mittank's last minutes may be captured in the most popular YouTube video featuring a missing person. Mittank's story begins in Golden Sands, Bulgaria on July 6, 2014. He had spent the week vacationing at the seaside resort with a group of friends. On this day, after arguing over soccer, Mittank got into an altercation with 4 men, resulting in a ruptured eardrum and possible concussion. Due to the injury, a doctor advised him not to fly and prescribed him the antibiotic cefuroxime before referring him to a hospital. Although his friends said they would stay with him, Mittank insisted that he was fine and they could return home without him. A friend later stated he seemed to be in a good mood when they left. His friends went on their way and Mittank checked himself into a cheap hotel, called Hotel Color. He was only on his own a day before his strange behaviour was captured on the hotel's security cameras. The footage revealed him pacing the halls and hiding in an elevator. He quickly became paranoid, and in a panicked call home to his mother, he whispered that 4 men were coming to kill him. He then advised her to cancel his credit cards. CCTV last captured Mittank in Varna airport. The video shows him entering the airport with his luggage before walking out of sight. Shortly after, Mittank is seen again, leaving his luggage behind. He is seen sprinting through the airport as if he is running for his life. He pushes through the doors of the airport and continues to run through the parking lot. The last shots of Mittank show him scaling a fence close to a wooded area. Airport doctor Kosta Kostkov later described Mittank as nervous and erratic. He claimed Mittank began to tremble when seeing a construction worker and was noted saying, "I don't want to die here, I have to get out of here." His belongings, including a backpack and suitcase, were later recovered at the airport. Its contents revealed nothing about his disappearance, however. Mittank was never seen again.